still remember that morning, cold enough to make your breath visible, yet inside the cafe, everything smelled of cinnamon and quiet music. I was at my usual table by the window, sketching notes for a story I'd never finish, when I saw him walk in, the kind of man who made silence follow him. Dark coat, expensive watch, eyes like they'd seen too much and cared too little. You could tell from a glance. He wasn't the kind of man used to waiting. He took a seat near the counter, not even glancing at the menu. His hands stayed clasped, still deliberate. He looked out the window, but not really at it, more like through it. The waitress on duty that day was Emma, early 20s, all warmth and freckles, the kind of girl who made strangers feel seen. She'd been working here for almost a year. I'd watched her learn how to handle every kind of customer, from grumpy truckers to heartbroken students. But that morning, when she looked at the man in the corner, something in her paused. She walked over with her notepad, smile steady despite the chill that seemed to follow him in. "Morning," she said softly. "You want it hot or cold?" He lifted his eyes to her then, sharp, assessing, but tired too. And that's when it happened, the pause. The kind of pause that isn't silence but wait. He leaned back slightly, voice deep but quiet. "Hot, always hot." I remember the way he said it, like it meant more than coffee. Like he wasn't talking about the drink at all. Emma blinked, caught off guard, then smiled nervously. "Coming right up." But I could see it. The way her hands trembled slightly as she filled the cup. The way his gaze followed her reflection in the silver espresso machine. When she brought it over, he didn't reach for it right away. Just stared at the rising steam and said, "Funny, isn't it? We all ask for something hot, then spend the rest of our lives trying not to get burned." She laughed lightly, unsure. "You sound like someone who's been burned a few times." He looked up. Once was enough. Something in that moment shifted. The cafe wasn't loud, but suddenly everything else seemed to fade. The hum of the refrigerator, the soft clinking of dishes. It was like the world was holding its breath, listening in. I didn't know who he was then. But later, the papers called him Ethan Cross, CEO of Cross and Vale Industries. One of those names you see in headlines about mergers and millions. But that day, he looked nothing like power. He looked like someone standing in the ruins of it. Emma, being who she was, didn't let the silence grow heavy. "I can warm it up again if it's not hot enough," she said with a small grin. He gave the faintest smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You can't warm up what's already gone cold." That was when she sat down, breaking cafe rule number 1. No waitress ever sat with customers unless she felt something pull her there. "What happened?" she asked quietly. He chuckled dryly. "You don't even know me," she shrugged. "You don't have to know someone to see they're hurting." For a long moment he said nothing, just stared into his cup like it held the truth. Then he spoke. "My company's been my whole life. Built it from the ground up. Every night I told myself it was for her, my wife. That one day she'd understand why I wasn't home. Why I kept missing dinners, anniversaries, promises." He stopped, took a shaky breath. "Last night she left. Said she doesn't even recognize the man she married." Emma's smile faded. "I'm sorry," he nodded faintly. "Don't be. She's right. I don't recognize me either." Something about the way he said it, quiet, unguarded, hit me hard. I'd seen that look before. People who spend years climbing ladders only to realize they were leaning against the wrong wall. Emma looked down at her apron, fidgeting with the hem. "Maybe you just need to stop climbing for a while." He gave her a long look. "And do what? Sit still? Watch everything fall apart?" She smiled softly. "Sometimes things need to fall apart before they can fall into place." That line hung there, fragile, but real. The rain started outside, tapping against the glass like a slow heartbeat. She poured herself a small cup and joined him, both staring out at the gray sky. He broke the silence first. "You really think I can fix this?" She tilted her head. "I think you've fixed a lot of things that mattered less." He laughed quietly, a sound that felt both strange and sad. "You don't know how many things I've broken trying to fix others." "Maybe that's the point," she said. "You keep trying." He studied her face for a moment, something softening in his expression. "You talk like someone who's lost something." Her smile faltered. "Maybe I have. But I learned something too. People aren't meant to live their lives cold." The storm outside deepened, and for a second, the lights flickered. She got up, grabbed a small candle from the counter, and placed it on the table between them. Its glow danced between their faces, making the air feel warmer somehow. He watched the flame like it was the first light he'd seen in a long time. "You ever feel like you spend your whole life building walls?" he said softly, only to realize you've trapped yourself inside them. She met his eyes. "Maybe you just need someone on the other side to help you out. I don't know why, but I remember that moment more clearly than anything else. The candlelight, the rain, the sound of her laugh when he finally smiled for real. He stayed until closing time, and when he left, he looked lighter, not fixed, but less lost. As he walked to the door, he turned back and asked, "What time do you start tomorrow?" "Same time," she said. "Why?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe I'll try something cold next time," she grinned. "You sure you can handle it?" He paused, looked back at her, eyes soft now, voice low. "With the right company, maybe." Then he walked out into the rain, and she just stood there, watching the door long after he'd gone. I didn't realize it then, but that exchange, those few words, would change both of their lives. 2 minutes later, as I packed my things, I caught Emma still staring out the window, smiling to herself. I remember thinking how strange it is that sometimes the smallest conversations can light up the darkest hearts. And if you're hearing this now, maybe that's your reminder too. To subscribe to Tale Story House for stories that remind us how even the coldest people can find warmth again. The next morning, the cafe smelled of rain-soaked streets and fresh pastries. I was back in my corner booth, half expecting he wouldn't show up. Men like that, they don't usually return. They move through places like ghosts, too proud to revisit the moments that cracked them open. But at exactly 8:07 a.m., the bell above the door rang. He came back. Same black coat, same quiet eyes, but this time something was different. The heaviness wasn't gone, but it had shifted, like he'd remembered how to breathe again. Emma looked up from behind the counter and froze for a heartbeat. Then that gentle smile spread across her face. "Back for round 2? She asked. He nodded, pulling off his gloves. "I said I'd try it cold." "Risky choice," she teased, filling a glass with iced coffee. "Not everyone survives the cold." He chuckled, a sound deeper this time. "Maybe that's why I came back. To see if I could." I watched the exchange like a scene out of a movie, slow, real, unspoken. They didn't need big words, just eye contact, warmth, and the kind of silence that holds two people together instead of pushing them apart. When she placed the glass on the table, he didn't touch it right away. "You remember what you said yesterday?" Emma tilted her head. "About what?" "That sometimes things have to fall apart before they fall into place." She smiled faintly. "Yeah, why?" He looked at the condensation running down the glass and said quietly, "Maybe that's what's happening to me." She sat across from him again. Same spot. Same candle from the night before, and said softly, "Falling apart isn't the end, Ethan. It's just where people start to rebuild." That was the first time I'd heard his name. He hadn't told anyone before, but somehow he trusted her enough. They talked for hours, about his wife, his work, her dreams. She told him she'd studied art once, that she wanted to open her own cafe someday, a place where no one would ever eat alone. He listened like he was memorizing her every word. At one point she said something that made him stop mid-sip. "You know what I've learned from serving strangers every day?" He raised an eyebrow. "What?" "That everyone walks in carrying something heavy. You just never know who's breaking until you look them in the eyes." He smiled softly. "Then what do you see when you look at me?" Emma hesitated, eyes tracing the lines of his tired face. "A man who's tired of being strong." He laughed under his breath. "Maybe I am." The morning crowd started to pour in, but he stayed, long after his coffee melted into water. Before leaving, he pulled out his wallet, but Emma shook her head. "This one's on the house." He looked almost embarrassed. "I don't usually take favors." "It's not a favor," she said. "It's kindness. They're different things." He stared at her for a long time, then nodded, slipping a card onto the counter anyway. "If you ever need anything at all, call me." She didn't pick it up right away. Just smiled. "You should probably start by calling your wife." That hit him. Hard. You could see it in the way his eyes shifted, like her words had reached a place no one else had touched in years. He left quietly, and for the next few days he didn't come back, but Emma. She kept glancing at that empty table by the window. You could tell she missed something she couldn't name. Then, one rainy afternoon, I walked in to find her reading a letter, her hands trembling slightly. When she noticed me, she folded it fast like it was something sacred. From him? I asked. She nodded. He went home. Tried to fix things with his wife. Said she didn't want to talk at first, but her voice softened. She listened. There was relief in her eyes, but also something else. Loss. Because sometimes helping someone heal means they walk away from you. Weeks passed. The cafe went back to its old rhythm. Life resumed its quiet, familiar pace. But every time the door opened, I'd see Emma glance up, hope flickering for just a second. Then, one snowy evening, maybe a month later, he walked in again. This time, no suit. Just a wool sweater, jeans, and a smile that looked real. Emma froze behind the counter. You came back, he nodded. I owed someone a thank you. She poured him his usual before even asking, setting the cup down gently. Hot today? He grinned. Always hot. They both laughed, a real laugh, easy and full. Then he said quietly, You were right. Some things do fall apart just to make room for better ones. My wife and I, we're talking again, slowly, honestly. Emma smiled, though her eyes glistened. I'm happy for you. He studied her face. You don't sound happy, she exhaled, looking down. Sometimes happy hurts a little. He didn't know what to say. Neither did she. So they sat there in silence, two people who had changed each other without meaning to. When he finally stood to leave, he took something from his pocket. A small silver key. What's this? She asked. For that cafe you told me about, he said softly. I bought the place 2 blocks down. It's yours, if you want it. Her eyes widened. What? No, I can't. He stopped her gently. You can. Because sometimes the people who keep others warm deserve a place of their own. I swear for a second, her hand shook. Why me? He smiled faintly. Because you asked me one question no one else did. Hot or cold? And you waited for the real answer. She didn't cry right away. But when he walked out, leaving the key on the counter, she turned toward the window, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. Outside, snow was falling, soft, endless. And for the first time, I realized, not every love story ends in forever. Some just end in healing. The next year, a new cafe opened on Maple Street. Its sign read, Ember and Ice. Inside, the air was warm, the lights low, and every cup came with a quiet reminder handwritten on the napkin. You wanted hot or cold. Either way, warmth is free. Sometimes I still go there. Sit by the window, sip my coffee, and think of how one question, one moment of kindness, can change everything. And if you're listening to this now, remember this. Even the coldest souls can thaw, and even the smallest gestures can spark something big. Drop a heart in the comments if this story reminded you that warmth still exists in the world. And subscribe to Tale Story House for more stories that touch the quiet corners of the heart.